It's been a few years since we've been overseas with the nets, but now the COVID restrictions have relaxed, Andrew was able to plan a trip more confidently for this winter. It was a long and wet journey down to Limoges to meet the owners of a fantastic venue that we've been to a couple of times in the past. Our journey was broken up with regular service stops, podcasts and the World Cup football games, whilst the relentless rain came lashing down. Previous winters, Glyn, Dan and Amelia were fantastic hosts to us, keeping us well fed and hydrated day and night, which always makes the long trip a little more bearable knowing we've got this to arrive to. This year was no different. On arrival, we were shown around our accommodation for the week before walking up to the nearest pub to discuss our netting approach for the next day. It was a grey, misty morning. The rain had reduced to a fine mist with spouts of heavier drizzle. Usually the lake would have been drained by 50% prior to us arriving, but this year draining was not permitted due to the long dry summer that we've just come out of. This made the job a little more challenging than previous years. Having seen the lake drained, we knew of underwater tree stumps which we would need to get the lead line over. Lots of these stumps were removed and can be seen dotted around the paths as you navigate around the site. The few that remained in the lake were likely to snag the net, causing carp to escape. However, the job was to remove silvers, which are far less effective at exploiting these opportunities. So with that in mind, Andrew shot the nets regardless. Forest View is a nice manageable size at around 6 acres, so we didn't need all the nets that we usually cart around the UK. Instead, Andrew selected only a few nets that we would need to do a thorough job without the added expense of dragging the trailer. Andy had made a plan to break up the lake into smaller sweeps by shooting 200 metres of deep net into the deep water, then using the shallower fine mesh nets for smaller sweeps around the outside of the main deep net. This means that we're not investing large chunks of the day in big sweeps, which could potentially be wasted if we lose fish each time we get snagged on one of those underwater stumps. The shallow fine mesh net allowed us to quickly bank a few bins of silvers before setting our focus on the main deep net in open water, where the carp are likely to be sat. It may come as a surprise to some that otters exist in some regions of France. Forest View fell victim to their presence a few years ago. Thankfully, they were quick to respond with a fence. Over the next 10 to 15 years, it's likely that France will go the same way as the UK with otter populations, which must be considered when looking to invest in fisheries over here in the future. Before pulling in the 200 metre deep net, Andy shot the 100 metre fine mesh inside the 200 metre sweep. There's 3 reasons we do this. Firstly, to locate the snag with the first net, so we can anticipate or remove the snag when we're ready to pull in the second net. This also gives us 2 shots at catching the silvers in deep water. The final reason is the fine mesh net allows us to potentially crop smaller silvers that could be getting through the 14 mesh of the deep nets. Snagging the net on tree stumps at crucial times when trying to land the main deep net inevitably cost us lots of the carp, but even so, a sample of a carp were landed and looking immense, with a couple looking over 70 pounds. By the end of the day, we had amounted around £500 of small silvers along with around £200 of pike and perch, which was a great result, creating a £700 void in a 6-acre lake, which will make more oxygen and more food available for the carp to continue to grow even more. Forest View was the only job for us this trip, up until a week before leaving when a couple of other local jobs made contact, which Andy chose to squeeze in whilst we were there nearby. so the nets, truck and equipment were all sterilised with plenty of Virkon ready for the following day. The next day we arrived at the address with a thick fog covering a mystery expanse of water. Slowly as the nets were loaded, the fog cleared, exposing a sheet of water much bigger than the previous day. Tightly stitching the nets together, we shot 300 metres into open water among the surfacing silvers. Between the three of us, we teased the sweep into an area small enough to begin sorting the catch. It wasn't until the last minute that we realised how successful the sweep had been. Numbers of large carp emerged amongst catfish, zander, roach and perch. This venue was another UK-owned carp fishery business, so the purpose of the job was to create space for these carp to continue to thrive. Cropping fish is essential in avoiding the water quality pressures and overcrowding stress that multiple species venues are subject to, particularly with the fertile nature of these large, shallow lakes that are fully exposed to the long, hot summers of recent years. The average size of these carp was impressive, but why do they grow much bigger in these regions? Well, obviously the biggest contributor is a geographical location. There must be a distance from the equator that warms water temperatures as close to optimal for the digestive enzymes in a carp's intestine to function most efficiently. 26 degrees water temperature is considered the optimum temperature for the digestive enzymes of carp to absorb nutrients most effectively. Much higher temperatures will lead to heat stress, increasing the vulnerability of water quality parameters. Temperatures lower than 26 reduce the efficiency of the digestive enzymes, but create a more stable environment for water quality parameters. I think it would be a reasonable assumption to suggest that there's an optimum locality to the equator for growing carp, which this region is close to. Lots of these French waters are shallow and drainable, which makes the stock management easy with the ability to drain. The shallow nature of these lakes not only means that the water can warm up faster, it also means that the fish are naturally closer to the lake bed, therefore naturally disturbing the substrate with every movement that they make. Disturbing the substrate allows oxygen to work through the disrupted sediment, allowing aerobic bacteria to break down the organic material into nitrate that feeds into the start of the food chain. Perhaps the water remains at the optimum temperature for longer, allowing this organic recycling process that's feeding the ecosystem to cycle much faster than it would in the UK. The final stop was made at Lac Serriere, another first-time visit to new customers. I didn't manage to catch much footage from this one, but pretty much a carbon copy of the previous 2 days. Hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of silvers removed. I really cannot wait to see how these venues progress over the next 12 months. There's so much potential in the biomass void created by AE Fisheries in all these venues. If you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed filming it, then please show your support by subscribing to the BP Milling YouTube channel. It's completely free, you just need to click that subscribe button and you won't miss another of our videos. We're also very active on Facebook and Instagram with stills and more inside knowledge of everything to do with healthy fishery management. This is the channel for honest and reliable fishery help. Subscribe and learn.